The moment the front door of Harbor Street Café slammed open, Maya jerked her head up from behind the counter. The wind shoved a burst of cold rain inside, scattering napkins across the floor like frightened birds. And standing in the doorway, trembling, soaked to the bone, was a man who looked as if life itself had beaten him down until he barely resembled a human at all. He clutched the doorframe for balance, coughing so violently that a couple dining near the entrance instinctively scooted their plates away. His coat, more a collection of damp patches than a garment, dripped a steady rhythm onto the floor. His hair hung in gray, matted strands over eyes too sad to belong to someone living an ordinary life. Maya didn't think. She acted. She rushed over before anyone else could speak, slipping her arm beneath his to help him steady himself. "Sir, please come inside. You're freezing." But behind her, a bark of disapproval snapped through the cafe. "Maya, what do you think you're doing?" It was Rick, the manager, self-proclaimed keeper of cafe standards and actual keeper of every possible annoyance. Helping him, Maya shot back softly, but firmly. Rick stomped toward them. "We don't need troublemakers in here. He's scaring the customers." "He's not a troublemaker," Maya said, still holding the man upright. "He's just cold." The man's head dipped, shame flushing across his weathered face. "I can go," he whispered hoarsely. Didn't mean to disturb anyone. Something inside Maya tightened. That voice, fragile, apologetic, as if he had been taught that he deserved nothing from the world, stabbed straight through her heart. "No," she insisted. "You're staying. Come on, sit down." She guided him to a corner booth where the rain couldn't reach him. Rick threw his hands in the air, muttering loud enough for customers to hear. "Unbelievable. This is why we can't run a professional establishment." Maya ignored him. The old man shivered uncontrollably, clutching his hands together as if trying to squeeze warmth from thin air. "Thank you," he murmured, avoiding eye contact. "I lost my wallet somewhere. I just needed a place to breathe." Maya knelt beside him so her voice wouldn't shake. "You don't worry about that. I'll get you something warm. You shouldn't trouble yourself," he whispered, eyes full of a quiet sorrow that seemed older than his wrinkles. "It's no trouble," she said, mustering a small smile. "Everyone deserves a hot meal." As she stood, he reached out instinctively, grabbing her sleeve with trembling fingers. "Miss, why help someone like me?" She paused, looking deeply into his tired eyes. "Because kindness doesn't cost anything. And because you look like you need someone today." The man swallowed hard, something wet glistening in the corner of his eye. Maya slipped into the kitchen, heart pounding with emotion. She filled a bowl with the thickest, hottest soup they had, added extra bread, and poured a fresh cup of tea. She didn't even check her tip jar. She just pulled out everything she had earned that morning. 7 wrinkled dollar bills and a handful of coins. She slid the money into the register before Rick could notice. Carrying the tray back to the booth, she set it down gently. "Here you go." The old man looked at the food as if it were a miracle. I have no way to repay this." "You don't need to," Maya said. His hands shook so badly that he nearly spilled the soup. She steadied the bowl for him, and he whispered, "Most people don't even look at me anymore." "Well," she replied softly, "I'm not most people." For the first time, a faint smile touched his lips. But across the cafe, Rick was fuming. He stormed toward them, slamming his clipboard onto a table. "Maya, what part of no freebies do you not understand?" She stood her ground. "I paid for it with my own tips. That's not the point. This isn't a shelter." Her jaw tightened. Maybe it should feel like one sometimes. A couple at the next table looked away awkwardly. The old man lowered his head, humiliated. Rick leaned closer, whispering harshly, "You keep this up, and you'll lose your job." "I'm not abandoning someone who needs help," she said. Rick walked away with a dramatic sigh. "One day, your bleeding heart nonsense will get you into real trouble." Maya exhaled shakily, turning back to the old man. "Ignore him. He forgets he's human sometimes." The old man lifted his gaze, studying her deeply. You're different, he said quietly. Special. She laughed softly, shaking her head. I'm just trying to make it through the day like everyone else. But the old man didn't look convinced. In fact, something almost like recognition flickered in his eyes, recognition or longing. As if he saw something in her he desperately missed. He finished the soup slowly, savoring each bite. And when he finally stood to leave, his voice wavered with emotion. You have no idea how much this meant to me. As he stepped out into the rain again, Maya watched him disappear into the gray blur of the city. She didn't know she had just changed the life of a man whose name would soon shake her world to its core. The rain did not let up that night. It beat against the cafe windows long after the tables had been cleared and the last customer had wandered out. Maya mopped the floors slowly, her mind drifting back to the old man's trembling hands, his soft voice, the way he thanked her as though the world had not offered him a shred of kindness in years. She didn't know why he stayed on her mind, but something about him felt different, almost out of place, as if he didn't fully belong in the ruined clothes he wore. Rick paced behind her, arms crossed so tight across his chest that his knuckles whitened. I hope you realize I'm writing this incident in your file, he muttered. She didn't look up. What incident? You know exactly what incident. Feeding vagrants. Lowering the cafe's reputation. Maya stopped mopping. He was hungry, Rick. He was trouble. And you're lucky he left instead of starting something. She sighed, feeling her chest tighten again. He just needed help. Rick's voice rose with irritation. And you think it's your job to save the world? You can barely save yourself. That hit harder than he intended. She inhaled sharply, fighting the sting behind her eyes. I'm going home, she said quietly. Rick smirked. Try being on time tomorrow. She didn't respond. She collected her bag, buttoned her thin coat, and stepped outside into the icy wind. What she didn't know was that someone stood across the street under a flickering streetlight, watching her leave the cafe, worry etched deep into his features. The old man, the man she fed. But his posture wasn't that of a broken wanderer anymore. There was a quiet precision to the way he observed her, a weight in his stance, a depth in his eyes that held stories he had not yet shared. He whispered into the empty night, "You shouldn't be walking home alone." But he didn't follow her. Not yet. The next morning began with chaos. When Maya entered the cafe, she found two strangers in crisp black suits waiting near the counter. They looked wildly out of place among the chipped mugs and faded menus. Rick rushed forward with his best customer service smile plastered on his face. Welcome to Harbor Street Café. How can we assist? Are you the manager? One of the men asked sharply. Yes, I am, Rick replied, adjusting his tie. We're looking for a waitress. Brown hair. Works evenings. Goes by Maya. Rick tensed. WY? Is she in trouble? Maya froze behind him, her hands still on the strap of her bag. I'm right here, she said. Both men turned toward her at once. Their expressions softened, slightly. We'd like to ask you a few questions, the taller one said. About a man who visited yesterday. Rick nearly choked. See? I told you he'd bring trouble. Maya stepped forward, ignoring Rick entirely. Is he okay? Did something happen to him? The men exchanged glances. One replied, We simply need to confirm some details. Rick shook his head dramatically. I knew it, Maya. You feed one stray and suddenly the FBI is here. The men ignored him. Maya, the taller one asked, was the gentleman alone when he entered yesterday? Yes, she said. Did he tell you his name? No. Did he behave strangely? She frowned. No. Just sad. The men's eyes softened again, just for a second, as if that answer meant more than she realized. Maya hesitated, then added, He said he lost his wallet. The shorter man wrote something on a small notepad. He looked up. If he comes back, or if you see him anywhere in town, we need you to notify us immediately. Maya's heart pounded. Is he in danger? The taller man spoke carefully. Let's just say he's important. Rick snorted. Important? The guy smelled like a dumpster. Maya shot him a glare. The men nodded politely to her and left, their shoes clicking sharply on the tiled floor. When the door closed, Rick rounded on her. "This is exactly what I warned you about. You want to bring in strays, and now some government people are sniffing around." Maya ignored him, but her stomach nodded. Who was the old man? Why were men in suits looking for him? All day, she found herself glancing at the door, half expecting him to appear again, half fearing he might never show up at all. By closing time, the rain had returned. Maya stood wiping down the front counter when she felt eyes on her. She turned toward the window and froze. He was there, standing across the street, under the same flickering streetlight, watching her with an expression caught between relief and longing. Maya stepped toward the glass. The old man gave the smallest nod, as though thanking her from afar. And then he slipped into the darkness. She exhaled, chest tight, heart confused. Something was happening, something far bigger than she understood. And tomorrow, when the cafe would wake to chaos, she would realize just how wrong Rick had been about the man she helped. He wasn't a stray. He was the storm. The storm hit before sunrise. Maya was barely halfway down the street when she noticed the cluster of people gathered outside the cafe. Neighbors whispering, customers pointing, strangers pulling out phones. Her footsteps quickened, confusion rising with every murmured voice. "Is something happening?" she asked a woman clutching an umbrella. "Oh, sweetheart," the woman breathed. "You don't even know the half of it." Maya's heart dropped. She pushed through the small crowd until the cafe came into full view, and her breath caught. Luxury black vans, utility trucks, and men in identical uniforms surrounded Harbor Street Cafe. Equipment was being unloaded, large stainless steel appliances, crates of supplies, and boxes marked with expensive brand logos she had only seen in commercials. Cables ran across the sidewalk. A man in a headset barked orders. "This can't be right," she whispered. Rick burst through the cafe door, red-faced and furious. "What do you people think you're doing? You can't just... AJY. That's private property." A contractor barely glanced at him. "Sir, we're just following the new owner's instructions." "The new what?" Rick screeched. Maya blinked. "Owner." The man nodded. "Yes, ma'am. As of 7 a.m. this morning, Harbor Street Cafe is under new management." Rick's jaw dropped so hard it nearly cracked the pavement. "New management? I am the manager." The contractor gave him a sympathetic look. "I meant ownership, sir. Someone bought the entire establishment." "But who?" Maya whispered. Before anyone could answer, the cafe door swung open from the inside, and the two men in black suits from yesterday stepped out. Rick stumbled backward. "You again?" The taller one scanned the crowd, then his gaze landed on Maya. A nod of recognition softened his stern expression. "Maya, good. You're here." Maya felt her heartbeat pound in her ears. "What's going on?" "We wanted to speak with you privately," he said. Rick shoved himself between them, nostrils flaring. "You don't need to talk to her privately. Anything you say, you can say in front of me. I'm the one in charge here." The shorter man raised a brow. "Actually, sir, you're not." Rick blinked. "Excuse me?" The taller man handed him a sealed envelope. "This was sent for you." Rick tore it open, eyes darting across the page. First confusion, then disbelief, then utter horror washed over his face. "Fired? Fired? Effective immediately?" The shorter man delivered the blow calmly. "Your services are no longer required. The new owner reviewed your management record." "That's impossible," Rick sputtered. "Who would fire me without even meeting me?" A deep voice answered from behind him. "I would." Silence cracked through the crowd like lightning. Every head turned toward the sidewalk, and Maya's breath hitched. The old man stood there, but he was not the same man she had fed. His hair was combed, neatly trimmed. His posture straightened. His coat replaced by an immaculate charcoal suit that looked tailored for someone who once dined with presidents. His shoes gleamed. His eyes, no longer hidden beneath exhaustion, held quiet power. He walked forward with measured steps, the kind that came naturally only to people who commanded boardrooms, not sidewalks. The old man she helped was not a vagrant at all. Rick's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. "Who are you?" The man looked at him with a calm that cut deeper than anger. "My name is Henry Whitlock." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Henry Whitlock. Even Maya felt her knees weaken. The name belonged to one of the wealthiest men in the country. A billionaire philanthropist known for disappearing from public life after his wife's tragic passing. Articles had been written about his grief. Rumors spread that he had abandoned his empire altogether. But none of that matched the frail man she fed soup to. Henry turned to the men in suits. "Thank you for handling things." "Yes, sir," they replied in unison. Rick stammered. "And Mr. Whitlock, I didn't know it was you. If I had known, I would have." Henry raised a hand, silencing him. "That's exactly the problem. You would have treated me differently." Rick swallowed hard, sweat forming near his temples. "Please, just give me another chance." Henry's gaze sharpened, but not cruelly. "Second chances are for those who show humanity when it's inconvenient. You showed none." Rick deflated, the truth flattening his pride. Security escorted him away, his protests fading into the rain. Then Henry turned to Maya. Her breath trembled. You're Henry Whitlock." He nodded gently. "I am." She shook her head, overwhelmed. "But yesterday, you looked like—" "I know," he said softly. "And you still helped me." The cafe door chimed softly as dawn spilled across the quiet street, washing the world in pale gold. Mia approached the entrance with her apron folded under her arm, her steps slow, her thoughts heavy. It had been days since she last saw the strange vagrant man. Days since her heart had been knotted with worry over whether he had found warmth, safety, or even a place to sleep. She didn't know why she cared so much. She just did. Something about him had planted itself deep inside her. An ache she didn't know how to name. She unlocked the door, pushed it open halfway, then froze. Her breath caught. Her hand slipped and the keys clattered to the floor. The cafe was unrecognizable. The old scratch tiles were gone, replaced by a warm, polished wooden floor that reflected the morning light. The walls, once chipped and stained, were repainted in a soft cream, accented with gentle earthy colors that made the place feel like a cozy home rather than a worn-out business. The flickering fluorescent lights had disappeared, replaced by soft pendant lamps that glowed like suspended stars. But it was the equipment that stole her breath entirely. Brand new stainless steel counters gleamed like mirrors. A state-of-the-art espresso machine, one she had only ever seen in online videos because it cost more than her yearly salary, sat proudly beside a modern pastry display filled with fresh croissants, muffins, and tarts she knew the cafe had absolutely not baked since no one here knew how to bake anything that fancy. She staggered inside, her trembling fingers brushing over everything, as if she needed confirmation that this wasn't a dream. What is all this?" she whispered to herself. There was no sign of forced entry, no mess, no chaos. Everything was immaculate, arranged with care, like someone had wandered in and rebuilt the place with love. She walked behind the counter and noticed something sitting on the new register. A folded envelope with her name handwritten in looping, elegant script. Her knees almost buckled. She lifted it slowly, her heart pounding unevenly. The pressure behind her eyes tightened. The handwriting was exquisite, old-fashioned, nothing like the shaky, tired scrawl the man had used when he signed the receipt days ago. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope. Inside was a single letter, thick, expensive paper, embossed faintly with a crest she didn't recognize. Her fingertips brushed across it, and then she began to read. "Dear Mia, you showed kindness at a moment when I was invisible to the world. When others saw a burden, you saw a human being. You reminded me that humanity still exists." She sucked in a breath, the words blurring as her eyes burned. "My name is Benjamin Hale. You may not recognize it, but the city does. I built the Hale Foundation, Hale Technologies, Hale Pharmaceuticals. But all the wealth in the world could not protect me from losing my wife, Lillian." She believed people were still good, even when the world proved otherwise. Mia covered her mouth with her hand as tears spilled over her lashes. After she passed, I couldn't breathe inside my mansion. I couldn't stand the way people changed the moment they saw my money. So I left it behind and walked the city dressed like someone society forgets. I wasn't testing humanity. I was searching for a reason to keep believing in it. Her chest tightened painfully. You were that reason. A sob escaped her. I will not walk into your cafe again as a stranger. I won't embarrass you or make this gift public. But I wanted you to know that the warmth you gave me, something you offered so freely, has reshaped more of my life than you realize. Mia clutched the letter to her heart as she sank onto a stool, unable to hold herself upright. This cafe now belongs to you. The deed is in the safety box beneath the counter. The renovations are fully paid. The staff will arrive soon. They've already been informed of the change, though not the details. What you build next is entirely in your hands. She gasped, staring wide-eyed at the letter, her heartbeat out of control. You gave a man with nothing a meal. Now I return to you what you gave without hesitation. Hope. The final line struck her hardest. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. Benjamin Hale. Mia pressed the letter to her lips, the words shaking her soul. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry, scream or collapse. All she knew was that the man she fed, the man she defended, the man she worried about, had left her a miracle she never asked for. The door behind her opened, and the morning staff stepped inside, confused and wide-eyed at the transformed cafe. They stared at her, then at the renovations, then at her again. Mia, what happened? Emma whispered. Mia wiped her tears with the back of her hand, unable to hide her trembling smile. He was never a vagrant, she whispered. He was a broken man looking for kindness. She looked around the beautiful cafe, and felt warmth radiate through her chest. And I guess he found it. She held the letter tightly, the weight of it grounding her, transforming her, rewriting her life in real time. The sun climbed higher, filling the cafe with golden light, and Mia realized something with startling clarity. Kindness had not returned to her empty. It had come back multiplied. It had come back as a new beginning. And somewhere in the city, an old man with a broken heart was finally breathing again. As the camera pulls away from the warm glow of the cafe, Mia stands behind the counter with the letter pressed close to her chest, the morning sun painting her in soft gold. The world outside continues moving, unaware that a single act of compassion has rewritten two futures, one belonging to a grieving billionaire trying to rediscover purpose, and the other to a woman whose kindness became the key that unlocked a destiny she never imagined. Sometimes, life doesn't change in thunder or lightning. Sometimes it shifts quietly, in the silent moments where one person chooses to see another. In a city full of noise and indifference, Mia chose empathy, and it came back to her in ways that defied logic and touched the soul. If the story moved you, if it reminded you that goodness still lives in the small corners of the world, then stay with us. There are countless untold stories of kindness, resilience, heartbreak, and redemption, waiting to be shared. And if you want more stories like this one, stories that stir the heart and remind you what humanity can be at its best, make sure to subscribe, tap the notification bell, and join this community of people who still believe in compassion. Because sometimes, all it takes is one moment of kindness to change a life. Maybe even yours.